Welcome. You're listening to Ask the Doulas, a podcast where we talk to experts from all over the country about topics related to pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and early parenting. Let's chat.
Hi there.
Hi. Hey, Lisa.
Hey, guys.
So I learned about Bebcare. I think Juliana emailed me. And then as I read more about it, I was intrigued because of the sleep consultations that I do. And I already mentioned EMFs because of my relationship with Lisa, who's a building biologist. So Lisa, why don't you introduce yourself, and then Brian, tell us what you do at Bebcare.
Yeah, I am a building biologist, and a building biologist assesses the built space. So whether it's a home or a school or an office building, for anything that directly impacts the health of the people who live or work or learn within those buildings. And so the three kind of main categories that we look at are the man-made electromagnetic prevalence in that building, the air quality or the indoor air quality, as well as water quality, very just basically speaking. And yeah, so I work with existing buildings to make them more health enhancing. And then I also work on new construction projects on how to make them healthy from the beginning.
Amazing. All right, Brian, tell us about you, since Lisa and I don't know you at all.
Yeah, so my name is Brian. I'm in charge of the product development at Bebcare. So what this means is that I work with my team of engineers and developers to develop existing and new products, new exciting products that we have. What Bebcare is all about is really we are a baby monitor company that specializes in ultra-low emissions baby monitors. And this is something that we are very passionate about, because one of the things that we realize is it's kind of what Lisa mentioned, is the prevalence of devices in our home that emits high doses of electromagnetic waves. So, for example, your Wi-Fi routers, your cellular phones, and the least what you don't want around your baby is a baby monitor that emits a very high doses of wireless radiation. So this is a problem that we try to tackle with our products. So we come up with a unique technology called DSR, digital safe radio technology, that aims to reduce wireless radiation coming from baby monitors. So in short, Bebcare baby monitors on average would emit anywhere that's sort of 2 to 5% of wireless EMF when you compare it to traditional baby monitors that uses something called DECT technology.
What is the technology that you guys use?
It's called DSR, Digital Safe Radio, which is kind of a proprietary wireless protocol that we have designed ourselves. Okay. So some of the research was originally done by our founders actually at MIT, but sort of the research was more focuses on the application of the radio signal for wireless communication. So they were really looking at problems of how to increase wireless range while reducing the wireless power of the communication. And then at some point, some of that research became the core technology of Bebcare because they realized some of that technology can actually be applied to baby monitors.
Let's assume most parents listening don't understand EMFs, or why a baby monitor would have EMFs, and why EMFs are even troublesome for, humans in general, but especially a little tiny baby or child that's growing and developing at a rapid pace. Do you want to give kind of a brief overview of why it's disruptive? And then I know you have a monitor there that we were actually going to test and see what kind of results you got.
All right, in terms of kind of how it's bioactive to the body, are you asking me that question, or are you asking Brian?
Yeah, let's just have you give a quick, because Brian said they found, this is a problem. That's why they created these. And I'm sure that's kind of why you got into this as well. Like, this is an issue, but for somebody who's never heard the term EMF, like even in, Bebcare mentions, I think on their website, that some baby monitors are emitting such a strong signal. It's the same as a microwave. But most people might go, well, okay, my microwave emits a signal. Like what?
Right.
I didn't even know that. So, and how bad is a microwave? How bad could that be?
Right. Well, in super quick layman's term, essentially the electrical pulses that happen according to the frequency, those are just very disruptive to the body, but especially children because they're growing so quickly. So the human systems or organs that are most affected by EMFs are the organs or systems that literally rely on electrical pulses to communicate with themselves or with other organs in the body. And so those would be your brain, your heart, the nervous system, your immune system, and then intercellular communication. All of those rely on literally the flow of electrons. And so the human pulse, like when you look at just the brain, for example, that frequency is somewhere between 3 hertz and then 30 hertz. So at most, it's a double-digit frequency, so number of cycles per second. But when we get into things like that use DECT technology, whether it's a wireless phone or a cordless phone or a baby monitor, those are in the gigahertz range. So those are very disruptive, and the power density is just way higher than what the normal body is used to. So it's just very, very disruptive to the sleep cycles of babies, but also just they're growing new cells, new tissue, new synapses every second of every day, and it's just a disrupting. It's just disruptive to the biological system of what a body is naturally trying to do. And when you look at kind of like the DECT technology, that is in the gigahertz range. So that's billions of cycles per second versus the DSR, which is what Brian is talking about, is in the megahertz range. So that's millions of cycles per second, which is, an order of magnitude less versus, the technology that other baby monitors are based on. And what I typically find for baby monitors, and of course this varies by brand and by model, but typically speaking, an audio-only baby monitor measures somewhere between 500,000 microwatts per meter squared or up to about 750,000. And then when you get into the video baby monitors, which the majority of people have, that is, anywhere from like 1 million to 2 million microwatts per meter squared. And if you look at the building biology guidelines in terms of what's considered safe for a sleep space, you want to be less than 10. So the slight concern starts in that 10 microwatts per meter squared or less. Oh, and so when I measured your base unit, it's somewhere between 2 and 300. So to get it down into kind of that, slight anomaly or less, we still need to distance the unit kind of probably about 10 feet ish, away from a body or away from a crib. So there's for sure a caveat that I would need to say, but this is orders of magnitude less of any other wireless, baby monitor that I've measured. So which
one do you have? Because I know
I have,
which is their most sophisticated model.
Yeah.
The motion.
I have the Bebcare here.
Okay, so
that's
the
right.
audio one.
Yep. It says ultra low radiation on it. Yeah.
Brian, any questions or comments about Lisa's thoughts?
Yeah, I think Lisa gave a really comprehensive overview about why EMF waves could be bad for the body. It's a really interesting topic. And, a lot of things that we see in the world is actually comprised of EMF waves. So just as an example, visible light is actually a form of electromagnetic waves. It is how we can see light is actually EMF waves interacting with our retina, which creates an electrical pulse that's being sent to our brain, and the brain interprets that as light, as visible image. So, when we talk about electromagnetic waves, not all electromagnetic waves are dangerous. Some electromagnetic waves, we're exposed to it every single day since the beginning of the world. But where electromagnetic waves can really start to get dangerous for the human body is sort of what Lisa mentioned, is the frequency of the EMF wave. So very high frequency waves tend to be correlated with very high power output. It's not always an equal relationship, but it tends to be correlated. So which is why people would say exposure to high frequency gigahertz or terahertz wave can have a detrimental effect on the body. And this is particularly prevalent for babies because babies, unlike an adult, babies, a lot of their body structure is not formed. And in particular, for a baby, the skull is not as well formed as an adult skull. So the amount of protection that they have around the baby's brain is much less compared to an adult's brain. And there are some studies, it's a bit of a controversial topic, but there are studies that have linked exposure to electromagnetic waves to a baby, whether or not the baby is born or perhaps in the fetus. There is link between that exposure and developmental learning disabilities that may develop down the road. And that may include ADHD. So that's why the idea of reducing EMF exposure for a baby, especially at a young age, is a very important topic for parents.
Before I even knew about this topic or met Lisa, the first realization I had of this was I have a sound machine at home, and I remember in the morning, putting my phone next to it one time, and all of a sudden the sound machine just went, and I knew that I couldn't put my cell phone near that, but I didn't understand. I'm like, oh, that's weird. My cell phone just can't be next to this. But then after meeting Lisa and doing some of these tests, it made perfect sense that the frequencies from this phone are so powerful that it's actually screwing with this little device on my bedside table. So what is that doing up next to my head? What is that doing when it's in my pocket all day? It just really makes you start to think about all the things that we have on us all day long. And then you have a baby and create this nursery. And you put, some nurseries have the Nest cameras. We have the wireless monitors and then sometimes people are using their cell phones as a sound machine. So the cell phone's right next to the crib. So there's just all these devices that we're putting in this little baby's room who, like you said, their brain isn't even, their skull isn't even formed enough to block some of those rays that we as adults are able to. So yeah,
absolutely right.
If somebody wanted to learn more about this, like let's say this is the first time a parent is hearing about EMFs and they're really skeptical, where would you send them to find, scientific evidence-based information so that they know that this isn't just some sort of weird conspiracy theory? Either one of you have a good resource list?
I mean, one of my two top go-tos are the Bioinitiative report, which is, I think, a 2,500 page report, but they have a 19-page summary for the public. It looks at both radio frequencies as well as AC magnetic. So those the biological impact of those two different types of waves and frequencies are kind of intertwined with that report. But I think it looks at I think it looks at over 3,800 peer-reviewed studies that have been done. So it's just a really good synthesis. And the other thing that I point to is the World Health Organization's classification of RF as a class 2B possible carcinogen. And there's other things in that category like asbestos and stuff that we know that we should be staying away from. And so, especially when somebody is skeptical, I just try to find more, the most kind of, I guess, plain factual information that is not, politically associated in any way. And those are my two go-tos. Now, there's a whole bunch of other, researchers and stuff like Magda Habas and stuff like that has done really good research. But sometimes I just find that to be kind of too dense for the person who's just getting introduced to this. What do you use, Brian?
Yeah, I think you mentioned a good source is the World Health Organization. I think their classification of EMF as potentially carcinogenic, that was back in 2011, really rang a lot of alarm bells for a lot of folks, not just parents, but really a lot of people who have wireless devices at home. I think a simple Google search on sort of the effect of EMF on human body would yield a lot of scientific research on this topic. In the past couple of years, a lot of really famous research institutions or universities have done really extensive and ongoing research in this topic. For example, University of Chicago has done a really good study where they used exposure of EMF, different variety of EMF, different frequencies, different power to laboratory mouse and see what kind of effect that they observe on these animals. And some of the results are pretty alarming. So I think it's definitely worth checking out, the raw scientific paper if, let's say, you are more technically inclined, just to see what conclusions these researchers have made.
So Lisa, your overall, you would say that this base model from Bebcare is definitely one of the lowest that you've seen.
Yes, it is. But with, the big caveat of it still needs to be distanced from the crib itself. And that's a big caveat because parents, or at least what I've seen in the homes that, I've done EMF assessments on, they typically put the monitor,
right,
as close as possible.
Sometimes right onto the crib.
To the crib, somewhere around a meter would be not close enough. So yeah. But I mean, if somebody, ideally for me, and I don't know if you guys have one of these coming or not, but I would love, there is a D-Link Model 2 that you can, you can plug an Ethernet cable into. So obviously something that doesn't emit any, wireless frequency in the mega or gigahertz range would be ideal. Not everybody is open to pulling Ethernet cables, through the wall or having it, strewn across their floors. But that, hardwiring their house is one of, the top recommendations, because then you can essentially turn off all the antennas that you have across your devices and electronics and stuff. But if they aren't willing to do this, then I would, this would be kind of the next best option, assuming that they will distance.
Yeah, absolutely. We do believe in the idea of creating a low EMF home for families. So that's why actually on our website, we put together a little short guide in helping parents, how can you create a low EMF home for yourself? And there are just a couple of really simple tips. Like, for example, instead of using a Wi-Fi router at home, try to use a wide Ethernet for your laptop or for your home computer, or at best, turn off the Wi-Fi router at night when you go to sleep. And same with cell phones. A lot of our friends, when they go to sleep, they put the cell phone right next to the bed on the nightstand. Sort of like less than a feet away from the head when they're sleeping. And it's one of these little things that you can do. Turn off your phone at night, or if you have to keep it on in case of emergencies, put it, let's say, 10 feet away, away from where you're sleeping. Just the idea of sort of exposing even for an adult, right? Exposing your head to 7 hours, 8 hours of constant EMF exposure at night when you don't really need to. For us, it kind of, these are the low hanging fruits. These are the things that you can do to really reduce the EMF level at your home.
Yeah.
I did want to mention that the other two models that Bebcare has, they are wireless, but they completely turn off when there's no sound, correct? So there's zero emissions when it's not in use.
That's right. That's actually, you brought up a really good point. Actually, part of the DSL technology, it's about voice activation. Okay. And this is something that's missing in a lot of other baby monitors. So, one aspect of EMF exposure is about, you don't want to use a high frequency device for your baby. On the other part is about the power output of the baby monitor. What we have accomplished with Bebcare baby monitor is that, most of the time the baby is not crying. So there's no point for the baby monitor to be transmitting video or audio data and emitting a lot of wireless radiation. So what Bebcare baby monitor does is that when there's no sound inside the nursery, the baby monitor actually goes into a deep sleep state. And in this sleep state, the emissions really does drop to zero. So this is something that really makes a huge difference. Let's say if you're looking at sort of the average EMF exposure for a device.
I have a question about that. For the Bebcare Here model, does it use that voice activation or not?
It does.
So, and then when I was measuring this, the base unit, so the unit that would be closest to the parents, that is, I've never been able to measure where it is going into a passive state. I am able to measure the portion that goes, by the crib, that goes into a passive state. But does the home unit is that also passive, or is it just the one in the nursery?
It's more the one in the nursery.
Okay.
But that said, there's a mode in the Bebcare Here baby monitor that you have to enable. It's called the green mode. And that once you enable the mode, then the sort of the emissions level really does drop to zero when it's in the sleep state. And the reason that's the case is because sort of in even, let's say, in a normal mode of operation, even if in the sleep state, there's still a little bit of signal that's being transmitted. And the reason why that's the case is because there's what we call the out of range and the low battery alert between the baby unit and the parent unit. But if you turn those off, then it really goes to zero.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Instructions on how to turn the green mode on?
Yep. This is we use a online user manual. And part of that is because we want to reduce sort of the use of paper in a lot of commercial products, consumer products these days.
And just curious, why isn't that set as the default?
The reason is because a lot of parents do want the out of range and low battery alert in the baby monitor. So they want to know, let's say, if they kind of walk outside of the house, they walk to a neighbor's house, they want to know if the two units are out of range, because once they're out of range, then it kind of defeats the purpose of a baby monitor.
Okay, so the part that's in the nursery is always in that mode where it turns off if there's no noise, but the base part that the parent holds, you have the ability to turn it that way if the parent wants to.
That's right.
Okay, got it.
And what type of sounds turn on the baby unit? Is it like, what if it was a sound machine or a fan, or is it more intelligent knowing that it's a voice or a cry?
It is tuned to pick up human sounds, sort of the frequency of human sounds more easily. But that said, it's it's kind of a configuration issue. So if there's a white noise machine inside the nursery, you may have to tweak let's say the microphone sensitivity on the Bebcare here, or kind of configure your white noise machine and the baby unit so that they do not interfere with each other. But there are ways to do so.
Okay, great.
Okay, is there anything else we want to touch on? No? You, Brian?
Good.
Yeah, I think that's it. Really, thank you so much for having me on this podcast.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. You too, Lisa. I hope that we at least answered some questions for parents on what the heck are EMFs.
Yeah.
And I know that so Gold Coast is a partner with Bebcare now, and I know you offer a discount. So if anyone wants to get a discount, they can go to Bebcare, and I think you just have to type in Gold Coast Doulas to get a 10% discount, or you can go to bebcare.com/discount/Gold Coast Doulas. That's kind of a long link, but I think either one will give any listeners a 10% discount. So that's great. All right. Well, thank you all.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you so much.
Good to meet you.
Thanks,
you, Lisa. Thanks, Alyssa.
Bye.
Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Ask the Doulas. For more information about Gold Coast Doulas, visit us on our website, goldcoastdoulas.com. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and give us a 5-star review. Thank you. Remember, these moments are golden.